Right. Welcome to Coffee with a Purpose, everyone, and to a nice sunny Monday morning that isn't as hot as it will get hot, but glad to have everybody here. And our guest this morning, and then hopefully maybe regular attendee, who knows, is Reverend Adam Isbitsky. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
Close, somewhat
yeah.
close, from the Eliot Church in South Natick. So we're really looking forward, Adam, to having a nice conversation with you this morning, learning more about you and what your hopes and dreams are for the church and the congregation and so forth. And as our is our usual custom, we'll go through and do super brief introductions of ourselves. So, Cindy,
Cindy Bates, coming up on 6 year resident of Natick, trail steward, singer in Sound and Spirit, um, Natick beautifier for Keep Natick Beautiful, and um, and love living right here in Natick Center.
thanks, Cindy. Martin,
I'm Martin Kessel. I uh, let's see. I've been in South Natick for quite a while. I've been in Natick for even longer, and I'm surprised that I haven't run into you because the your predecessor, Reverend Adam, I ran into almost daily as I walked did do my daily walks from Water Street in South Natick to the church and to the coffee house. Weren't part of the church, but we certainly went by it a lot. So good to see you, and I'm anxious to meet you.
great. Uh, Robin, just come off mute there. Yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm Robin Pedrelli. I am very new to Family Promise. I am taking over the role of housing equity advocate. And this was one of the groups that Judy, one of the people who previously held the role, suggested that I become involved with. So I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you and being part of this, hoping we get to meet in person again someday, because I think it's always easier to make connections face to face. And then just, I need to hop off at 11:30. I just want to say that. So,
Yeah,
Adam,
I
you
think you
don't
said
feel like I'm
9:30
not
actually.
interested
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, Adam's thinking, what? I need to talk till 11:30? No.
Did
9:30,
I
I
say
believe. Yeah,
11:30?
you did say, yeah.
9:30. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Carol.
Good morning. Good morning, Adam. And I'm Carol Berkowitz, and I've lived in Natick over 60 years, and I love the town. And thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks, Carol. Pat.
Oh, good morning, Adam. Good morning, everybody. Pat Conaway. Keep Natick beautiful.
Great. Thanks. Sally.
Good morning. Nice to see everybody. I have kind of missed you in the last couple of weeks. You've been here, but I haven't.
Hmm.
But I'm glad to be back. And I haven't been anywhere. I've just been absent. So I'm looking forward. I've lived in Natick for about 9 years and I love it. And I'm a California transplant. So you know I must love Natick if I'm staying. I'm looking forward very much to hearing from you, Adam, and about the South Natick Church.
Thanks, Sally. Chachi.
Good morning and good Monday for everybody. My name is Jean Gimonar and I live in Natick more than 26 years ago. I'm a retired scientist from the biopharmacy or biomedical sciences, and I'm a runner. Maybe you can see me on the street of Natick every day, 5.6 miles at least. This is my standard circle. I'm ready to do my my activity today, and otherwise I'm a singer. I love to meet with other people, and I'm part of the CLC, the Lutheran Church in Natick, and participating in different activities through the church.
Great. Thank you. We should have the Natick Runners Club on this group sometime. Yeah. Tom.
Hi, my name's Tom Daly. I'm a 35-year resident of Natick and climate activist, and welcome.
Great. And I know Dee Dee was having some bandwidth problems, which is why she turned off her video. Dee Dee, do you have audio? Can you speak?
Can you guys hear me okay?
We
Yeah.
can.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Um, yeah, so Dee Dee Bergeron, I've been in Natick for most of the last 30 years and retired a year ago after teaching kindergarten and first grade for 42 years and just kind of getting involved more. I've always been more focused on what's going on in Wayland because that's where I was teaching than Natick. And so now I'm starting to get more involved in what's going on in Natick. And I go to the Congregational Church. So with Doug and Sarah. And Pat, I saw you there yesterday. I didn't get a chance to say hi.
All right, cool. Thank you. Brinley.
Good morning. So happy to have you join us. I'm a 26-ish year resident. Um, yeah, happy to have you guys here. Thank you for joining us.
There's so much you could say. Yes. Alan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alan Cantor. As usual, I'm kind of the newcomer. I've been here just over a year, but I moved here for a reason and I love it here. And I'm a member of the UU Church up in Sherburne, but always exploring. So welcome.
Hmm. Great. Thanks, Alan. Donna.
Hi, my name is Donna McKenzie, and I have been involved in many different kinds of activities in Natick, including town meeting and school committee, charter and bylaw review committee. I live in what was my parents' house that they bought in 1951. So if we're going around saying who's lived here the longest or has the longest connection, um, it's it's always me, but I value mostly my connection because this is a town that I love and the people that I really care for. And I'm really excited about all the ways the town is growing and changing. And I wanted to come and welcome you today, Adam. I also have a Master of Divinity degree and a doctorate in ethics. I have worked as a Catholic chaplain. I'm Catholic. And I'm excited to hear about your plans and hopes for your ministry here in Natick. And so just welcome and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Donna. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, a retired geologist. Do a bunch of different things around town. Doug and I are both active at First Congregational and town meeting member and on the Community Preservation Committee. And that's enough about me. Welcome.
Yeah, yeah. And besides volunteering at the church, I'm a one-day Rotarian. I work at Scoopapalooza, but they meet at either 7 or 7:30 in the mornings, and this this is tough enough for me at 9. So there's no way I'm going to join that organization, but I do help them with ice cream because that's a good thing. So anyway, great to see all of you and to have you with us, Adam. And kind of the floor is yours. You can, if you want to talk and have people hold questions, that's fine. Or we usually use the raise hand feature, but however you want to engage is fine with us.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it's great to be here with you all. As far as interacting, I think we're a small enough group that if you just want to, raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask a question at any point, just go ahead and do that.
Great.
What I thought I would do, first of all, I don't think I'm going to talk for this whole length of time, but who knows? There might be a really great conversation that brings us off in a different direction. So at first, I thought I would talk a little bit about myself, who I am, um, kind of how I got to be in ministry and in Natick, and then a little bit about Eliot church history. That itself could be probably a semester-long course, but we'll do the highlights, I guess. So I don't have a slideshow, but I have some pictures. So
Yes.
um,
Let's see. You might.
can I share?
Yeah, let
I
me
have,
see.
oops.
Here we go. Yep, you should be able to now.
All right. All right, great. So I'll start with a little bit about me, who I am, and sort of like my background as far as families stories. I feel like my story is very American.
Ooh,
So I'll start with the Isbitskys. Can you see that picture?
yes.
Okay, so this is a picture of the Isbitskys somewhere around 1943, maybe. And my dad is the little guy that my grandmother is holding
Oh,
on the left. And my grandmother, Ada, is actually who I'm named after.
oh.
And so these are the Isbitskys. They lived in Boston. My grandfather, Nathan, who's on the right, immigrated from Poland, Eastern Poland. The borders, changed a few different times.
Mm.
He actually was born in 1885 and immigrated in 1907.
That's the year my
And
grandfather was born too.
so he would have been 100 years old the year I was born. And my grandmother immigrated from Russia. And they were both Jews in Eastern Europe and fleeing different uh, pogroms or other sorts of anti-Jewish bias in that part of the world and found their way to Boston and they met here. Um, and I just love that picture. My family on my dad's side has this I don't know, history of having kids late. So my grandfather was actually, he was 55 years old when my dad was born. And my dad was 45 when I was born. So that's how, when people are telling stories of, oh, their great great grandfather, I'm like, oh, that was like my grandfather's era. So I never did meet him. He died in 1955. But they were in Boston and let me get a picture of my other side of the family, my mom's side. Do, do, do. So these are the Davises, and this picture was taken in, I think, 1985. It was my grandparents, I think it was their 40th wedding anniversary. So this is my mom's parents in the middle, seated, and then all of their children. So when you uh, when you watch like Good Will Hunting and he's listing off all of his brothers and sisters, they stole that from my family. The Irish Catholics in growing up in Boston and Jamaica Plain and Rosendale, Hyde Park, they moved around a little bit. But you have Jody, Mary, Jackie, Patsy, Frankie, Jimmy, Betty, Barbie, Tommy, Kathy, Susie, Annie, and Charlie. And my mom is seated on the left and on the front row there. And my mom, Kathy, is number 10 of 13 siblings.
Wow.
As an only child, that blows my mind.
So I have a huge number. So like the contrast is in culture, the contrast in family size was pretty big between both sides of my family. I want to point out 5 or 6 years ago, uh, well, it was during kind of COVID lockdown-ish times, and one of my friends helped me get into ancestry.com and do stuff there. And I learned more things about my family history that I didn't know. I guess some of my aunts knew, but I did not. And so I'll share one other picture of an ancestor. Um, this is Armstead Davis. So Armstead Davis was born in 1843 in North Carolina. His father was a slave owner. His mother was a slave. And Armstead escaped from North Carolina up to Ayer, Massachusetts, and fought for the Union in the Civil War, and then settled down there, married an Irish immigrant, Mary Duffy, and the Davises in sort of central Massachusetts, and then eventually they found their way to Boston. Um, so he's part of my story as well.
Hmm.
So I feel like, I don't know, this this my family story, I think couldn't have happened anywhere else in the world but in the United States. Um, and then you have little old me. So I grew up in Stoughton, Mass, so not too far away. Went to Stoughton Public Schools, went to Bridgewater State College. Originally, well, not originally, my undergrad degree is in music. So I always knew that I wanted to be in music and wanted to be a music teacher. So that is what I went to school for. I did teach briefly in the public schools in Brockton and in Weymouth. But after really just a little over a year, started a children's theater company in Needham. So ran that starting in 2011. That was kind of part-time. I was working an office job during the day. And then uh, meanwhile, I was at my church, which was the First Congregational Church in Stoughton. And it was a fairly small church. And so I was encouraged to be in different kinds of leadership roles. And so, I was on deacons and I was on Christian ed. And for those of you who know sort of like church structure, you'll know that I lucked out because I never had to be on trustees. So,
Oh, you lucky person.
so I managed to escape that. But it's funny because I ended up doing a lot of bookkeeping during my day job. Our church was a teaching parish site for Andover Newton Theological School. So each year we would get seminarians that would stay for a year, September through May. And I think in part maybe because I was a teacher, I was invited to be on the teaching parish committee. So a small group that kind of works with the student, help them craft their goals for the year, and see them through, write reports for the seminary. And every year, uh, they would say, well, when are you going to seminary? And I'd say, ha ha ha, no, not me, never. Until I think 5 or 6 years of that, I was like, actually, maybe that is the right move for me. So
What's that expression? God works in mysterious ways.
I guess so. So, um, people, there's the 30-second version of a sort of a call story, 5-minute version, or the like, let's have a beer. But I would say for me, because people ask this, why did you go into ministry? And there was no burning bush moment for me or like, light shining down and you must do this. But it's something that in the church that I was sort of nurtured in, um, a lot of different gifts and skills that I had built up in different parts of my life, and also wanting to just do good in the world, all came together. Um, I should have backed up a little bit to say, you saw that my parents came from Jewish and Catholic backgrounds. How did I end up in the Congregational Church? Initially, I was raised in the Catholic Church. Um, my dad's family wasn't very religious, but they thought maybe I should, and my little sister, we should have some sort of something, some sort of religious foundation. And so we did um, attend church. We weren't, very frequent churchgoers, I would say, but we did do the CCD thing. And, I did get, um, through the religious ed program. Confirmation is a program that usually happens sort of maybe early high school years. It might vary depending on different traditions. I did not finish the confirmation program in the Catholic Church.
Hmm.
At that point, I felt, you know what? I don't want to assent to um, beliefs and take responsibility for my faith when I felt like it wasn't quite a good fit for me. And I was like, hmm. And my mom didn't, she didn't care. She wasn't like disappointed or anything like that. But it was at around the same time, I wasn't really looking for any other church, but a friend invited me to a youth group, which was at the First Congregational Church in Stoughton. And so I kind of started going there just by myself. My parents didn't go, my little sister didn't go. I didn't have a driver's license yet, so this you know um, wonderful church lady, Nancy, who lived sort of like 10 houses down from me, would pick me up sometimes and take me to handbell rehearsal, which I thought was like the coolest thing ever, because again, I was a music nerd. Um, and then, through the years, I was involved with them for well, certainly over 10 years before I ended up in seminary, but even beyond, I stayed very active in that congregation. And then in 2014 is when I formally started at Andover Newton Theological School, which at the time was in Newton Center. It's now actually sold, they've sold that campus and they're now part of Yale Divinity School. So they're in New Haven. So 2014, September, I show up to orientation for classes, and something happened I did not expect, which is that I had a love at first sight moment, which I didn't even believe that that was a thing.
Huh.
But I met my husband, David, on the very first day of orientation for classes. He's also a UCC minister, and he's at the Hancock United Church of Christ in Lexington.
Wow.
And so, one reason, Martin, that you don't see me walking around South Natick is because we live in the parsonage of David's church in Lexington.
Ah.
So even though I do work in Natick, what do we call people from Natick? Natickites? I don't know.
We call them good
Natick,
people.
Natickian.
Tony.
So I do not live in Natick. Um, and I found kind of like a little bit of a roundabout way to the Eliot Church. Um, I have I do different kinds of transitional ministry. I might be older than I look, so I'm told. I've actually worked in 9 different churches,
Wow.
including a couple more locally. I was at the Wellesley Hills Congregational Church for a couple of years. I was also at the First Congregational Church in Holliston for a bit. And I knew of the Eliot Church because one of my friends, Shane Montoya, had done his internship there in seminary. And so I was kind of like something I had heard of, was loosely aware of the Eliot Church. The way it works in the United Church of Christ, which is where I'm a minister, is that we interview for jobs like a normal person, you know? There'll be a search committee formed by members of the congregation, and it's a little bit like online dating, where if a church has an opening, they'll post a profile on this sort of centralized web page that gives you, many pages of what the position is, description of the church, and all of that. And if you're a minister and you're looking and you're like, ooh, I like that profile, you say to the conference office, ooh, please send them my profile. And then if the church likes you, they might call you for an interview. And then the search committee will recommend one candidate to the congregation. And so my candidating Sunday at Eliot was last November. And so at that service, I, led worship, preached, and then we would have a congregational meeting afterwards where I sort of, um, disappeared, went off to see the I was shown like around the library and such like that while the congregation was meeting, and then they had a vote, and pending the result of that vote, which was unanimous, I was called to the congregation. So I started at the Eliot Church on the third Sunday in January, and I've been there ever since. I am here for it's basically 3.5 years doing some like redevelopment, revitalization, and assessment of ministry. All right, Doug or Sarah, you have your hand up.
Yeah, and actually, what you just said, I guess, is starting to shed a little bit more light on transitional versus settled. So we use exactly the same tradition in our congregational church. I was actually on the search committee for the settled pastor previous to our current one. But what we call transition or interim ministry is the period when you're between settled pastors and you're looking for someone to come kind of short term. That, at least with our church, that didn't turn out to be a full congregational vote, I don't think, to select that
Select
person.
the interim, that's correct.
Yeah, it was a sub team, but so you're there for a distinct period. You just said 3.5 years, and
Yes.
you've got like they've given you a to-do list or something, huh?
Yeah, well, so we have a set of shared goals
Okay.
for this time. Um, Different traditions may use different terms. So this is not exactly the same thing as an interim minister, which is usually maybe something like 18 months
Right.
between settled ministers. I'm what's called a designated term minister, which means that, what the next position is not clear.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out what we want to do together as a congregation. Who do we want to be? And then we'll decide what the next settled position is going to look like. So it's a little bit longer term, a little bit more visioning and working together than maybe a sort of standard interim ministry position.
Yeah.
But one of the goals of this time, maybe you all can tell me because many of you have been in Natick for quite a long time. I think the Eliot Church has been a little sleepy. And so we want to get reconnected to the community, whether that's town events or, groups like this, making sure. I know Robin just hopped off. We are connected with Family Promise and things like that, but we want to kind of reassert that we are not a museum in South Natick, but an active congregation, and I think we're pretty cool people.
Cool.
I want to talk next sort of about Eliot Church history, but I don't know if there's anything that came up for anyone or questions we want to go to now.
I mean, what you just said is a great segue to, yeah, either the history of the church or kind of how big or, what's your congregation like now. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to start with some history. There's a lot of history that's been written about, of course, Natick, but the Eliot Church in particular. One book is this one, From Many Backgrounds, which was written by James Morley, and that's a Natick Historical Society publication. And there are others sort of in that group, if you want to know some more. But the original Eliot Church was the first institution in Natick, founded by John Eliot for the praying Indians in 1651. So this year, 2026, is the 375th anniversary of that founding. And so it's pretty cool to be here at this time. And thanks, Brinley, for sharing that link to Natick Historical Society. Great asset. And we love that they're, right diagonally across the street from our church as well. So I know you all might know this history better than me, but basically the original Praying Indian Church, the Praying Indian Town, was set up in Natick. And then church-wise, the first church sort of fizzled out after maybe around 25 years and was reformed, with Daniel Takawambit being the first ordained native person to Christian ministry. And he was buried along with several other native peoples on the land that's right under and around where the Bacon Free Library is. But when the library was constructed, his headstone was relocated to the Eliot Church grounds. So if you're coming to our church and you go up the ramp that's on the right side, you'll see his headstone is there. It's not typical native practice to have headstones, but because he was a Christian minister, that was something that was done for him. And so he's not buried in that location, but his headstone is moved to that location. So that was the second Indian church. And that church lasted a little bit longer, but also sort of fell apart after about a generation or so. Then there was a third church formed in the 1720s. That was an attempt at an integrated church between the Indians who were living in Natick and the English speaking peoples. So that third church was formed. Again, this was all on the same site as where the Eliot Church stands now. And there was it's called different things. Sometimes it's referred to as the Meeting House Wars, or another just like dissent in that congregation. And basically the attempt at integration failed. And the English-speaking people relocated the church to the center of Natick. And we call that church the First Congregational Church.
We're wrestling with that name.
Yes. So even though it is actually, you could call it the third church in Natick, that's kind of the origins of the First Congregational Church. And then the site in South Natick where the Eliot Church building currently stands really was vacant. And then the building, one of the buildings burnt down. Another time it just sort of fell into disrepair. There were other religious shifts happening. Early in Massachusetts history and Connecticut, the Congregational Church was the established church. So we did have a state church that wasn't federal. The First Amendment was passed that there would be no national church. But even when the First Amendment passed, there were still some states that had established churches, and Massachusetts was one of them, which means that local taxes were used to help support the Congregational Church in Massachusetts. In the 1820s was when disestablishment was taking place. And so it happened in a couple of different stages. First, the law was that you did not have to, if you didn't belong to the Congregational Church, you didn't have to pay taxes to support it. But then the sort of second step of that was that taxes were no longer collected to support the church at all. So I mentioned this as part of the history because it was happening as Congregationalism and Unitarianism and Universalism were also having this theological, sometimes it was is more cantankerous, but sometimes it was just a lot of paper writing back and forth about, sort of the role and nature of Jesus. And these were like big public debates that were happening. And at the time, Unitarianism and Universalism were two separate things. So we know them as the Unitarian Universalist Church today, but those were two separate entities. The American Unitarian Association was founded in the 1820s, right around the time when disestablishment was happening. And so you could have multiple churches, and now there was, because of the way taxation was changing, there was kind of more money available to start new churches because people, the taxes they would have paid to the Congregational Church, they could now use to support their own institutions. And so it was right around that time that the Eliot Unitarian Church was founded, and the current building that was erected in the late 1820s, 1830. And so that was the founding of that building that that's been there for almost 200 years. Again, we're already like 175 years into the history of the story of religious worship on that site, but for the past 200 years, this one particular building has been there. A little bit later, the Congregationalists, who were tired of, bringing their horses up to the center of town to where First Congregational is now, formed the South Parish Congregational Church, diagonally across from the Unitarian Church. And we held that building until the Eliot Church actually just sold that building last year, and now it's a Seventh-day Adventist church, but the building's still there. And so for a long time, the Congregational Church and the Unitarian Church in South Natick were diagonally across from each other, both struggling. And then in the 1940s, they decided, why don't we formally come together? And so they decided to do that through a federation. And what a federated church is basically two churches that each have their own membership lists that take some votes separately, but in all other senses of the congregation, do everything together. So the Eliot Church as a federated church started in the 1940s, and then officially in 1990, it merged together to be just simply the Eliot Church of South Natick. So we are a Congregational and Unitarian Universalist congregation. I think this reflects quite a wide array of beliefs in actuality. And okay, let's go to a question, but then I'll say a little bit more about kind of like who is the Eliot Church now? What are we all about? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this might be a good segue to that because I'm fascinated at that history. And, as I mentioned, Sarah and I, some others here, members of First Congregational Church, and sometimes, it even says on the front of our building, 1651, John Eliot, yeah. But there's so many versions of the story and the history. And I guess one thing I'm interested in, particularly since, you have this kind of development task of figuring out who is the church today, who do you want to be? How widely shared is the version of the story that you've just told accepted by all the folks in that community? Because I mean, even within our own congregation, I think there are people that like to tell sometimes significantly different stories of the history of our piece of this. And coming together and deciding, well, what do we want to be, maybe kind of requires having a common understanding of who we have been.
I think that's a wonderful question. I think it gets at kind of the debates in our culture at large about the telling of history and who gets to tell that history. And can there be multiple versions of history that are kind of all true? One thing that I didn't bring up today was the Natick praying Indians, which they have revived, and they also, since I believe 2013, have come back and worship at the Eliot Church, which was their original, church spot as well. So they worship once a month, and so the way that they tell history um, is different from the way that the Eliot Church tells it, from the way First Congregational tells it. I think I was going to say this a little bit later, but in October is this 375th anniversary. And so these three congregations, First Congregational, the Eliot Church, and the Natick Praying Indians, are all coming together to worship together at the Eliot Church site on October 11th. And that will be sort of a recognition of these three different congregations that all share a heritage in this location. We all have, very diverging histories from that point, but that we can be together and sort of celebrate each other and celebrate sort of the legacy of John Eliot, and who probably could have never imagined, where we are in this, fourth century since he helped found the original church. I want to say more, but Martin's hand has been up,
Right.
so
yeah.
Go ahead,
Martin.
Yeah, I'd just like to promote this. I don't know if it's been mentioned yet because I was out looking in my shelves looking for this book, so you may have mentioned it already.
He held it up just when
I
you
have
did.
the same one. Yeah,
you got it as well. Yeah. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Jim Morley. He wrote this, I believe, when he was 99 years old, and he was easy to talk to. He knew everything, and it was rather amazing. So he's got the whole history. Beautiful book, signed on the first page.
Oh, nice.
And I think he's promoted not only the heritage of the church, which he had a key role, but also he was head of the Historical Society. So he really had many roles in South Natick and the church. So I would like to just mention
a couple other Jim Morley books that you might be interested in. This just Natick history that goes 1651 to 2000, and Hometown Natick 1945 to 2000.
Yep.
These are all Natick Historical Society publications.
Yeah.
Pat.
I believe they're still all available at the Historical Society, as far as I know.
Yes, Adam, thank you. It's a fascinating story you're telling. I was going to ask you about what's going on today. Do you have an opinion or any advice for us about the South Natick Dam removal?
Oh, boy.
As someone who has the least amount of nostalgia about the dam,
yeah,
what I can say, and I said this at a select board meeting actually, is that the Eliot Church, if we wanted to have some sort of gathering where we sort of told stories of the dam removal, shared pictures that might be out there, and had almost like a memorial service in a way, I think that would be something that we could do. I mean, it's happening, like I don't have an opinion about it. Um, so I came in just this year, which I know it's been discussed for several years at this point. But I think, as far as me and the Eliot Church, as a religious institution in South Natick, we can help facilitate people's like processing feelings and sharing memories if that's something that anyone would want to do.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, this is what I learned. I can't remember. Martin, I think, knows a lot more about it than I do, but I think before the white man, they say that the Charles River there, in South Natick, you could actually almost walk across the river on the backs of the fish. There was so much rich wildlife in the river. And the Native Americans actually put a fish weir there, well, roughly where the dam is, and they would actually catch lots and lots of fish with their fish weirs, you know. This is again before the colonists came and kind of took over.
I think it'll be interesting to see sort of how nature reclaims that spot and like how I don't think it's going to hugely shift, but like how things might change and how we can witness that in our time, you know?
Thank you.
Dee?
Dee, yeah. Dee?
Yeah, I'm sort of curious. My husband works for he's the admin for the UU Church in in Sudbury. And since I'm congregational, we've had some interesting discussions about the difference, and I'm curious about how you walk that balance with a church that doesn't believe in the Trinity. That's my understanding of it. Doesn't celebrate holidays like Easter and Christmas in the way that a church that does believe in the Trinity would. Like how you walk a balance with churches that have such differing beliefs.
There is kind of a fine line, and it's I think what we do is we don't try to do a kind of lowest common denominator approach, but instead we kind of we do actually celebrate Christmas and Easter and other festivals too, and things that are a little bit more religious and things that are a little bit less so. For example, in the month of June, we had one of our Sundays was learning all about Juneteenth and how that is a new holiday federally, but the history. We had a pride focused Sunday. And then yesterday we had Baseball Sunday, which is an annual tradition where we have sort of a service in 9 innings and then we all go out and see the Woo Sox.
I love that.
But yeah, so like the Eliot Church, there is a fairly wide range of beliefs from sort of traditional Christian kind of understandings of the divine to several people that would describe themselves as atheist or agnostic, and kind of like everything in between. And in that way, I feel like we're kind of reflective of perhaps the community as a whole, where I think as a congregation, we all sort of understand Christian language because that's kind of like, the pot that we're all stirred in, kind of as in the wider culture. But where our individual beliefs fall about certain doctrines or dogmas really can be scattershot. And it's not even like from person to person. It might be this year I'm really feeling Christmas. This year, not so much. So what holds us together as a community is, our covenant and our bond to each other. And I think that that's something that we need just in general is people who are committed to each other no matter what. Like we are gonna see this through even if we disagree. It's such an important practice for kind of the body politic. So that is something that in my role as a minister, I have a free pulpit, so I will preach kind of what I think, but not in a way where I'm trying to necessarily convince people that what I say is the right thing. It's more just this is my observation. And it's not my pulpit either. It's ours. It's like we share this thing together as the church. And so it's not at first coming into it, I was really grilling the search committee, like, well, how do you hold these things together? Because I'm a little confused. Like, what do you all believe? But actually, it's not the belief part that's the most important part of the community. It's the community part that really informs what our beliefs could be. And so, there might be 10 more people that join the church and whatever their beliefs are at that time, that will evolve over time. That's going to change us. And that's something that I think is enriching. Enriching, is that a word? I just point out.
Enriching.
Enriching.
Enriching. I like it.
Brinley's hand has been up for a while, so I wanna go to you, Brinley.
Yeah, thank you. You can't see me, but I've been nodding my head to a lot of fear.
Oh,
Well, I see your smile in your photo, so I'll take that.
Brinley?
Brinley?
Thanks. Thank you. I love that answer you just gave, Fredidi, and I appreciate it a lot because I think sometimes so much of spirituality is that challenge of what? And the reason I originally raised my hand is because I was listening to the select board committee meeting when you offered that for South Natick for the dam to help facilitate something with that. And I just wanted to say, I actually think the community could really, really use that. And I think that we're probably on a time frame to do that really shortly before they start, drawing down the water and making everything change. And I'm happy I will put my email in the chat, and I'm happy to work with you on that this week if you want to try to do something like that, because I really actually think that I personally would benefit from it, but I also think the community would benefit from knowing that it's happening. I think I am one of those people who really, I am in support of restoring the river. 100%. I after viewing everything and reading everything, if I had been on the committee, I would have voted to restore the river. But it also really does hold a lot of personal thought to me and space to me. And I spend a lot of time there with my kids, and I can really, really understand the grief that people are feeling from the loss, especially for the sound. The sound of that is going to change. And I would love to be a part of seeing if we could put something together in the next week. I know that's crazy, but if you have time for that, I would be very happy to help put something together, to help blast it out on social media and to help coordinate something like that with you, because I actually think that would be a great gift for the community. And I really think you'd be a great person to lead it. So I'm
pretty neutral, right? I'm new. I don't have thoughts. I don't have long memories of the dam, but
I would love to help facilitate that.
And it's like anger is also a valid response to grief too, right? So if people are angry because things are changing, then let's have a moment for people to yell and shake their fists, right? Because that's also it's an emotion. It's valid. Maybe. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, we should connect soon, because I'm actually about to turn into a pumpkin because our church closes for the summer. So I'm not around for most of the summer, but maybe we could pull something off soon.
Okay.
I do kind of think it needs to be in the next week, because otherwise I'm not sure if it'll have the same. I think we could certainly do one after the change, but if we wanted to do one before the change, I think that we would need to try to pull something together, and then not necessarily do it in a week, but do the work in the next week, because looking at the schedule for when the drawdown is going to happen and all of that, I think that it's going to. We're fast approaching the in-water work change. So
yeah.
Okay.
So without taking too much time just on this one topic, which I agree, if a service or something could be engineered, that would be fantastic. The requirement for the Eliot building is if it has to be inside. If it's something that could be held outside, some of that dependency probably goes away. But in any event, I see 4 hands up, and hopefully they're not necessarily all on this topic, but it is what it is. So, Cindy.
I just wanted to share that when I lived in Roslindale, I started attending the Unitarian Church in Chestnut Hill, and the minister there was in a group with the minister of King's Chapel, which I didn't even know was a Unitarian church,
Mhm.
and the church in Weston, First Parish, and the Eliot Church. And those four ministers would get together every week. And I learned that there was this thing called Christian Unitarians. And so so I went to that church like 20 years ago because I was curious. And I just wanted to add that. That's all.
Yeah, those churches that you named, some are very idiosyncratic, but yes, if so, for example, if you are used to a UU church and you came to the Eliot Church, you would find that the service as a whole would be much more Christian than many UU churches. Do not all share Christian beliefs or Trinitarian Christian beliefs, but the service itself, we almost always have a Bible reading, for example. A lot of UU churches don't. Um, but yeah. So would I say that all of us are Christian Universalists? No. I think I sort of am. And maybe my own theology changes, by the minute sometimes. Um, but yeah, that we are on that line.
Hmm, great. Pat?
Yes, Adam, I had a question for you, another topic. I'm the one who brought up about the dam. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, no, it's a great topic. Yeah, I'm sure there's
I
so many things we can be talking about too. So,
I
yeah.
was wondering if you care to comment on the on your voyage, or how it is for uh, leaders, spiritual leaders, ministers who are gay, and how that journey has been for you, and how it is kind of more like nationally, globally kind of thing.
Hmm.
Sure. Okay, so I mentioned that I originally grew up in the Catholic Church and then moved over to the UCC. That was not because of anything LGBTQ plus LMNOP related. I make fun of our own, I call us the alphabet mafia sometimes. But no. So I I think about this deeply, but I also think about it like, I don't know, it's just who I am. What am I going to do about it? I'm sort of like almost tired. It's also like the end of Pride Month too, and I'm like, ah, all right. Like, yeah, was it yesterday or like Thursday night when Natick Nights, and I went there and it was like Natick Pride, and I'm like, all right, one more Pride event, okay. But also earlier in the month, Wellesley had their very first ever Pride celebration.
That's
Really?
amazing.
And the select board there did not endorse it. They have never passed a Pride resolution in
Really?
Wellesley. And so it was a grassroots led thing. So you know what? Even right around us, there are still communities that are doing this for the first time.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, to be, gay or queer religious leader, I don't know. I find it kind of commonplace these days almost, but I think we have I think queer people, and I'll use that term, not everybody does, um, have a real deep spirituality often. And there is a sense of sort of like taking religion back from the man kind of thing, but also, um, I think we sense things in a deep way, and I have not had a problem using a pretty traditional religious format to shape my own faith.
Mhm.
That's not true of a lot of LGBTQ people. A lot of people that grew up in a church got negative messaging, which is still, of course, the dominant narrative. And so they often leave religion or organized religion altogether. I'm like, hey, if you want an unorganized or disorganized church, come to the Eliot Church. We're so disorganized. No, but actually, but I still find a lot of value in why I'm a member of a pretty traditional, religious organization, because I think that the community helps keep me real and honest and pushes against my beliefs, so that it's not just all about me, but it's about something that's bigger than me. And I also find a lot of value in the sort of like the Sunday to Sunday ritual um, of what we do, lifting up joys and concerns for each other, the music that really uplifts my spirit. So, and that's just the, every 7 days thing, during the week is when most of your life is lived and most of your spirituality is actually born out. And that's how you interact with people and interact with
Adam,
the world
a,
inside.
a quick question.
I've gone on
No,
maybe a
no, I
different
just wanted
direction
to
than you
ask you
wanted to
if
go.
are you aware of any movement in a
Mhm.
kind of like a more positive direction, say among Catholic organizations, churches, and faith? I don't know.
You know, it's funny because all of us kind of have to be aware of what the Catholic Church is doing just because they're the biggest, right?
Right.
So, I have been encouraged by sort of the slow movement of Pope Francis and now Pope Leo that I feel they have a big heart, and that is something that is gives off a welcoming vibe. The Catholic Church is so huge that it takes a lot of time and energy to make any kind of change.
Right.
But yes, you have people like Father James Martin and Outreach is a Catholic group. In fact, they just had a big I don't know if it was a conference or something, where Cardinal I don't know, is it Cupic?
Hmm.
I think he's in the Cardinal in New Jersey, maybe,
Oh,
um, led um, led that, and it's basically an organization for LGBT Catholics to get together. And
mhm.
even though they know that the theology or the doctrine is maybe not affirming, they can help push for recognition. And so yes, that does exist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Donna's had her hand up quite a bit too. Donna,
Yeah.
uh, although that doesn't look actually, is that Donna?
I'm
That's
Yeah,
here. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm
couldn't
like
hear.
multitasking. The Supreme Court is announcing some key decisions any minute. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to hear, but I was one who suggested some kind of service at that select board meeting. And I
Mm.
just want to say that I was really so excited when you immediately stepped up and said that you wanted to help. And I just want to say I'm happy to help you and I can work with a short time frame, and I appreciate your idea too that grief can be mourning. And my hope would be that all of the kind of complainers about returning the river would have the opportunity to be sad or feel whatever it is they're sad about. So I put my email address and my phone number in the chat. So let's talk with Brinley and whoever else is interested.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And Catherine had also put in the chat that the water drawdown actually starts the day after tomorrow. So yeah,
Mhm.
Catherine, yeah. Oh, yes. Did
Just
you
a,
want
just, just a quick note, and I know that this is understood in this group, and this is anger is a legitimate and very real response to grief. And I do think that many, many people are angry. What I'd want to add on to that is to say that the people who made that decision, I'm one of two that are still on the board, should not be the subject of that anger. And I know that this body, this group of, I don't need to tell you guys that. I know that. It's just that as somebody who, as we're talking and listening this morning, I'm just going through my select board email real quickly to see which ones I can toss off quick responses to. And I got to tell you, the amount of hate, like real hate, personal attacks, vitriol.
Uh-huh.
Almost all of you know that I've had at least one security incident at my house. I've had two. So not everything makes the news. And the fact that the police department now is monitoring and driving past our houses. This is about bike lanes, by the way. Bike lanes have the prospect of bike lanes has generated such vitriol on social media that the chief is now sending police cars around our house at night, at least 3 times a day, all 5 members of the select board. So,
That's
so Adam, I
terrible.
know that's not what I know that's not what you meant at all, but it kind of triggered me a little bit because we all work very, very hard to make decisions that are best for the Natick of the 37,000 people we represent and the Natick of 20 years out or 30 years out, what's best for the town. And doing both of those things simultaneously is difficult. It's rewarding, otherwise I wouldn't do it. But when you encounter people who are really, really angry, and my guess is you don't run in the circles where people are carrying pitchforks and things on fire, gently remembering them that, or reminding them that they too can run for office. That's something else I've asked people to do. People who are really angry, step up and run. It's a lot of work. Um, Rewarding, but again, so I just wanted to say that real quickly. That was a lot longer than I intended to speak.
Well, thank
Those
you,
are
Catherine. I mean, yes, there are um, valid feelings, but there's also valid and invalid ways to express those. And so I'm really sorry for, the attacks that are coming your way. It just seems like this is the way we do politics now, and it's ugly and terrible. And so I wish you and your family and colleagues safety because that's what we should all have. So I'm sorry that that's happening for you.
yeah. And it's unfortunately become kind of the way of the world, but hmm. All right.
But it doesn't have to be, right? Like
Let's
it
get
doesn't
back.
have to
Yeah.
be. We will change this back. We will.
Yeah.
Because despite everything, I still believe in humans, which I don't know, maybe I'm misguided, but I still think we are pretty awesome.
Hmm.
I want to just talk a little bit about kind of like the Eliot Church, a few things that we're involved with and things that we have coming up. So, we are a very small community. If you come on a Sunday, you're likely to see between maybe 20 and 40 people, which means we know each other. We care for each other. We have a wonderful, a lot of churches, we do some outreach with Natick Service Council, Family Promise, the Open Door, things that you've probably, heard of. But I think one thing we do really well is we call it in reach, which means if you are in the hospital or going through something, we're there. We are showing up for you. If it's a meal, rides, things like that, I think we do our in reach really well to help each other out. And I know, especially for us native New Englanders, we can be very proud people. We don't like to ask for help. And we say, we'll figure it out. We got this or whatever, but pulling up your own bootstraps gets really tiring after a while. So that's another reason why I stay involved with the church community because we can actually help each other out.
Hmm.
Oh, Doug, yeah.
Well, if you want to expand on that in reach a little bit too, I know our church has sometimes struggled with that. We spend so much time doing things out for the community, and then, all of a sudden someone will say, Susie hasn't been in church in 9 months. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, she was having cancer treatments. It's like, what? Why aren't we taking care of her? My kind of specific question to you is, are you saying you do that well for your community, or are you also saying if any of us know of someone who really needs some caring that maybe they're not getting, is
Mhm.
that something that you're positioned to try to receive that request and have your community do it all? That's a huge
Well,
ask. So
yeah, I mean, so
yeah.
initially it is sort of inward focused, right? It's for people that are sort of already kind of generally part of the community or maybe like one step removed. But given our limitations in size, if there's a request that we can help with, we will, you know. Um,
Mhm.
One thing I think churches, okay, I'm probably gonna say this wrong, so give me some grace here, but churches need to care about people who are struggling. Like the ancient texts refer to that as the widows and the orphans and the poor and the foreigners among you. Like who is the least in society. So I think we need to do that, and I think churches generally try to do that. What I think we sometimes end up with as an unintended consequence is that churches are for people who are like middle and upper class. And the less thans are not supposed to actually be part of the church. Supposed to be the people that we help. I think that is also wrong. If you're in a church and everybody is like, doing good for themselves and doesn't need help, I think we have kind of missed the point. I think we've kind of missed the kind of community that I think Jesus was calling us toward. So I think that's a perpetual struggle for the church, is to figure out, well, who is missing, not just missing because we haven't seen them in the pew for a few weeks, but missing because maybe they look at us and say, I would not fit in with them. And so I think we have to be continually pulling the scales from our eyes and seeing who is actually missing. And then try to solve that.
Mhm.
Dee
Yeah.
Dee, you had your hand up?
Yeah, one thing was I wondered if somebody could put the name of that book that you guys were all showing earlier in the chat, along with um the author's name, because I'm not familiar with it and I'd be interested. And the other thing related to what you just said, Adam, is that I know that our the First Congregational Church in the town center, as opposed to the one at South Natick, has been working really hard for decades now to make the church more like accessible and affirming to as many groups as possible. When you have a church that was built so long ago, there are a lot of barriers, and I'm just wondering how that is working for you down there. Like, you know, I know you have a smaller congregation, so to do capital campaigns and things must be very difficult. And I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I mean, accessibility. So, like the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in what, 1990, right? We've had more than a generation now, but still a lot of church buildings, just talking about the physical structures, not the people in them, are difficult to accessibilize. We have a ramp, for example, that if you are in a wheelchair or on crutches or something like that, you can get in the building, you can get in the sanctuary, you can get to a bathroom. But, I have, for example, one of my friends, Jen, is a pastor who's in a wheelchair. How many churches have a pulpit that someone in a wheelchair can actually get to, you know? So my husband's church, the Hancock Church in Lexington, they just did a $4 million capital campaign. And one of the goals was updating accessibility so that the chancel, the place where worship is led from, could have a ramp to it and it be more accessible. There was also, air conditioning and other parts of that campaign. But you know, other churches, like for example, at the Eliot Church, we do not do streaming. It's something that we just don't have the volunteer capacity for, and we don't have the budget to hire someone to do. But for people that are there in person, we really try to um, do what we can. Also, I know, for example, at Christ Congregational Church in Brockton, they have weekly sign language interpretation. I don't know many churches that
Oh,
do that.
wow.
But so they're kind of like a magnet for people that are deaf and hard of hearing because they're one of the only churches in that area that have that. And so yeah, there's lots of different kind of avenues for accessibility. I think streaming is one way that can reach people that are at home or can't often come to a church building. Often that can involve captioning too, which can help people with hearing issues. So I have yet to find the perfect church, and sometimes the challenge is in New England, a lot of our institutions are hundreds of years old. And so we're also kind of shepherding these really old institutions that often come with really old buildings that have their own issues and trying to be everything to everybody. So I guess my advice when I talk to churches is you cannot be everything to everybody, but find who you can help really well and then, work to your own congregation's strengths and be there for those people. We like to think that every congregation is a good fit for every person, but that's not true. And also, different congregations are good fits for different people at different times in their life. Maybe there's a theological shift, or maybe there's something else where, like, you know what, I think I need to go somewhere else for the next chapter of my faith journey. And it's not always like a bad thing to do that.
I know that currently our church is
Mhm.
focusing on the sort of growing understanding of the neurodiversity in the
Mhm.
population. And that's another area of accessibility that is like it's one that we're looking at very hard right now. But it's all very tricky because what is works for one person could actually be the thing that makes it very difficult for another. So
Right. Like I love organ music and big choirs, but that may be something for, somebody that, is sensitive to loud sounds or something. They might like not be able to be part of that same worship service or that same congregation, but that's something that brings me so much spiritual uplift. And that's why I say not every community can work for every person at all times.
Mhm. It's a good reason
I
to
thought
have
I wasn't going to
communities.
be able to go for an hour and a half, but we keep going. So,
Oh yeah, you're getting to know this group.
This group has a lot to say.
yeah.
Yeah,
Pat?
Yes, I have a question for you, Adam. Is there any, among all the spiritual leaders we have here in Natick, really a great team, I think. Are you going to try to do another Harmony Month? I mean, I know you did one in April, I guess, and with Rabbi Raish and you and Cindy and Becky, all these fantastic spiritual leaders we have in Natick. You ever think about doing it every 6
Yeah,
months?
so we have a really pretty good multi-faith group, and I've been in a bunch of different towns, and I think Natick has one of the best. And we've already talked about Harmony. I think we're just calling it Natick Harmony for next year. I think we're looking at kind of 2 weeks, the last week in January, first week in February, where there's going to be a bunch of events. But there may be just things that a faith community is hosting, like maybe it happens in November or maybe it
Yeah.
happens in April or whatever. That is an event that is well suited for people from other faith communities to attend to. So we may market that to use, marketing language
Yeah, that
as
sounds
something
really
that,
good.
hey, this is a Natick Harmony event. So if you see Natick Harmony or something like that, that's because, we are intentionally talking about, what are events that happen in our congregation that are good for people from other religious communities too.
Mhm. Thank
I
you.
know that also St. Mark's, the Coptic Orthodox Church, they
Yeah.
have a newish priest who's very interested in getting that congregation more involved in the community and kind of opening them up because they're kind of insular historically.
Mhm.
So yes, Eliot Church, I think that's one thing that you're going to see certainly from me is getting us plugged in. Like I want us to be visible more at events. You're going to see my face for sure, but also other people from Eliot around town. One thing that we started internally is a sort of an Eliot response team as breaking news happens that needs to be responded to. We have a team that will either show up with signs somewhere and buttons or, might show up in other ways if there's a need identified where people need to be mobilized quickly. So that is something that are we are actively doing as a small group within our church. And I guess because this is going to go on YouTube, I don't want to say more
Can
about
you
about
can you give
that.
an example of a time when that group did something, or not really?
Or maybe not.
Don't
I'd
worry.
rather not.
Yeah, that's
We
fine.
can we
That's fine.
Yeah, we live in tough times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your comment that, no one church can be everything, but to the
Mhm,
extent that we all learn and communicate with each other as a community, we can collectively do a much better job at that. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, one church being specialized in this and one in that. If we can all work together as a giant network, it
Yeah, I
can
mean,
get
I
so much
I
done.
have I never I don't think about other churches as competition. I just
Mhm.
don't. I think all of us are out there for helping people spiritually, helping our town and our wider community. And so the more we can do together, I mean, that's just always been my philosophy. And I found that, that works
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good.
Well, like you were joking a few minutes ago, maybe you didn't realize it would be so easy to fill the time, but we of course have. Do you have any closing thoughts or comments before we usually finish up with kind of current events, and which we know the big thing is the dam,
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to share with us, Adam? It's been so wonderful to have you here this morning.
Yeah. So, like I said, we don't have services every Sunday in the summer. We do have a couple of lay-led services by people who are members of the congregation. So on July 19th, and August 30th, we will have two services in the summer. So if you want to kind of just experience Elliot sans Adam, you can go to those services. And then on September 6th, which is the first Sunday in September, I'm actually going to be preaching at First Congregational Church. So that will be cool. And then the 13th is when we sort of really kind of start our program year back up first Sunday after Labor Day. And you will also see us at events in the fall. We're starting our 375th year again, as I said way back in the beginning. So we'll be at Natick Days. We are working on kind of put this date in your calendar. We're just about to announce this. October 3rd, Saturday, we are working on a sort of a South Natick day. I don't know. We don't have a name for it yet, but probably an afternoon kind of event. We'll put out more details as they're available with, fun and games at Shaw Park, followed by we're hoping to have a movie screening. So that will be kind of part of our kickoff to our 375 year with other sort of South Natick focused partners. And then again, October 11th, 10 a.m. is going to be our big 375 anniversary service at the Eliot Church, and also attending and leading will be First Congregational and Natick Praying Indians.
Oh,
And so, yeah, that's a few of our upcoming events. And of course, you can also always go to theeliotchurch.org, 1L, 1T. And you can sign up for our mailing list, where we will not email you like politicians 5 times a day, but just once a week, just to see what's going on in the community.
That's fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for your time with us. I think the only thing I heard this morning that was a little bit disappointing is that you have a 3.5 year tenure. Somehow that'll change and you'll decide you got to have more of us and you'll stay on. Or
Well, if everyone was like you all, I would definitely stay forever. So
yeah,
you're hired.
Yeah, and please, any Monday morning that you can, join us. You're on as the distribution list, so you know the speakers that are coming. And to that point, just very quickly before we do current events, because next weekend is the kind of holiday weekend with July 4th, we will not be having a session, but then we will have speakers through the remainder of July, and then we take what has kind of become a traditional August break, and we'll start up probably after Labor Day. So that's our kind of upcoming schedule. I usually turn to Brindley first for current events, and but we have been talking that maybe the very next, well, maybe it's not the very next thing about the dam. Brindley, what's on tap for this week?
Well, I would first like to say thank you to Adam. It's really been wonderful to have you here. I thank you. And then the second thing is just to say happy Independence Day, 250th celebration this year. I hope everyone enjoys it. And just to remind people that on Saturday there is there's a group that brought back the picnic. No parade, but they brought back the picnic. Maybe next year there'll be a parade. So I hope people will come out and come downtown and show their support for the 4th of July picnic and having 4th of July community again. There'll be a bike parade just like we used to do. So I hope people will come down for that. And I wish everybody a happy 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brinley. That's great news. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, I think I'm gonna first just go ahead and turn off the recording and